Steve Mielhausen here at Bellator 60 in Hampton, Indiana, and we're here with Bellator CEO Bjorn Rebney, and we were just sitting there talking. Bjorn, how did it feel today to get in the car and actually drive to an event instead of getting in a cab or walking somewhere?
Or jumping on planes and transferring flights and flying all day. It was awesome. I jumped in the car this morning, put the key in the ignition, and 45 minutes ago I was sitting here at the hotel ready to rock and roll. And we're another 20 minutes from the venue, so great. All the friends and family from Chicago can be here joining us cage side. I mean, it's great. We planned this. This was on purpose. Horseshoe is amazing. I mean, the place, if you've ever been to the venue, the sight lines, everything about the place is just top shelf. So it was pretty cool being here right in our own backyard.
Now, you guys haven't been here since August of 2010. Now, did you feel that, everything that's been going on, the starts you guys have created, starting off season 6, does it feel like a full circle for Bellator coming back to Chicago?
It does to a large extent, especially given how rapid the tickets have been going out of the door at Horseshoe. So, yeah, it does kind of feel full circle because we did a couple of shows a few years back in Chicago, and we were brand new, and people didn't know who we were, and it took a lot of work to get a little bit of traction going. But, man, this show's just been going like wildfire. I think we've got a couple hundred tickets left, and and we got a lot of stars on the show and a lot of people paying attention and a huge world title fight. So I don't know if it's full circle, but it's sure getting around the circle.
How hard is it not to get overly excited? Because I can see the smiling face in your home. And how hard is it not to be more of a fan instead of, wearing the business hat?
That's a great question, and it's a balance for me all the time because I've said it in countless interviews. I came into this as a fan. I used to be in the boxing business, and I was an attorney representing athletes, and what I did for free, like what I used to go and pay to do, was MMA. I used to pay for tickets for the shows. My buddies and I would get cheap beer and pizza, and we would buy the pay-per-views. We'd all, put in $4 or $5. So it's always a balance of sitting there like a fan. Sometimes my camera guys will shoot me cage side, and they'll be in the middle of the fight, and they get these moments where I'm jumping out of my seat with a huge smile on my face and like a fan. And I gotta bring it back down and go, that's right, I'm the CEO. I can't get too excited about anything that happens in the cage, but it's just, it's a balance. I mean, this is, every once in a while I pinch myself when I'm sitting cage side, and I'll be like, I'm sitting cage side, I've got a headset on, I've got a monitor right in front of me, I can literally reach out and grab the cage. For a guy who loves MMA like I do, that's a pretty cool scenario, so.
Did it work out the way you wanted it, having Pat Curran get the challenge for the title here? Was it, because Pitbull was injured, and then was the plan then, once you thought about, like, hey, this does make sense, Pat's from Chicago, let's put it here in Chicago?
Yeah, it made sense. We were talking to the folks at Horseshoe vis-a-vis Caesars Entertainment for some time, trying to figure out how we could put a big show together here. But with Pitbull's hand, and I talked to Pitbull, like, literally on a week-by-week basis, and with his hand still injured, they're like, well, Pat will step into that spot. He's in great shape. He's ready to rock and roll. He didn't take any kind of a beating in the last tournament. He was just dominant start to finish. And it just kind of the stars aligned. Pat Curran from this area, been living in this area, training. He's got tons of friends and family and connectivity. So, yeah, I mean, the stars aligned really well.
What do you think of, Pat Curran? He's gone from, Eddie Alvarez now down to featherweight. How great of a story is there for Pat Curran in your mind?
About as good as it gets. I mean, Pat Curran is kind of the prototypical Bellator guy. Wickedly talented fighter who came in, fought at 55, came in as the 8th seed in that 55 tournament a year and a half ago. Knocks out Ricci, and Ricci was supposed to be the next GSP out of Canada. Beats Huerta by the smallest of hairs, then beats Toby Amada, then stands toe-to-toe with Eddie Alvarez, drops back down to 45, and just looks dominant. Looks like one of the best 45-pounders on earth. So it's just an example of a guy who, it's March Madness. It just doesn't matter where you come from or who you are. If you get into this tournament, all you got to do is win. And Pat has just won in such convincing fashion. So a great story, an epic story. And, I don't know how much you talked to Pat, but just a super good guy,
No, he definitely is. We've talked to him a couple times. And what do you think of the main event? This is quite arguably one of your bigger main events in the history of Bellator.
Yeah.
You got the underdog, the hometown boy, and Pat Curran against the champion and Joe Warren. How do you see that fight playing out?
Boy, very tough. I mean, I think if the fight remains standing, Pat Curran has a distinct advantage. If the fight goes to the ground, Joe Warren's one of the best wrestlers in mixed martial arts. He's got a huge heart. As we get deeper into the fight, Warren almost physically seems to transform as fights go on. He gets bigger, he gets stronger, he gets more aggressive. He's got a huge gas tank. So I don't know. It's a really tough fight to call. Stylistically, they're much different fighters. Warren's got an amazing amount on the line. I mean, my dad always used to say to me, "Is be careful when you corner a pit bull," and that's what Joe Warren is right now. He's cornered. He's had a rough run over the last few months. He needs this win desperately and needs to reestablish himself. He was ranked number 5 in the world up to his last fight. So, man, a lot on the line. Everything kind of is coming together the right way. A lot on the line. 2 great fighters, differing styles. I'm not going to blink.
Now, a guy who was doing his open workout over here, Sean McCorkle, and I talked to Sean on Monday, and he was shocked that he thought it was a joke that he got a call from Monica Cox. It's like, oh, Bellator wants you to come fight on their opening debut of season 6. What was the differences with you guys, and how did you come to an agreement?
We were just looking for local guys for the undercard, local guys who realistically could just draw tickets and move people to come out and see this great event in our hometown. And he's got a following in the Indiana area, so we called Monty and we were like, look, if he wants to be on the show, we'll just do a one-fight deal with him and put him on the show. And we'd love the fact that he draws and people want to see him fight, so bring him in.
Could we see him again in the future, or is it just going to be a one-shot deal and then you guys go your ways?
I don't know. I mean, he draws a lot of interest. A lot of people pay attention. He had a tough run in the UFC. We've got a real strong heavyweight division. We'll see. Let's see how he does on Friday night. We can make a determination from there.
Who should we watch out for in season 6?
Oh boy, who should you not watch out for? Each one of the divisions has gotten just wickedly strong. I mean, it's just. If you'd asked me a year ago at 55, who should you watch out for, I probably wouldn't have said Mike Chandler. And look what he's done. So I don't know. I mean, watch out for everybody. 1 to 8 right now has gotten so close that trying to put these tournaments together with in the first round 1 versus 8 and 2 versus 7 has become like a math equation. I mean, it's just tough to get it completed. So just keep your eyes open because anybody could be the next Mike, anybody could be the next Dantas, the next Lima, it's stacked.
Talking about your lightweight champion, I did talk to him yesterday, and he was a little vague to me about his next fight, and then a press release came out today saying he is fighting May the 4th. Can you tell the fans who he's fighting, when he's fighting, and it will be for the title, or will it be a super fight?
It will be, as we've talked about in the past, we're trying to stack tournaments together and get more tournaments going so that we can eliminate the super fight. But with a guy like Chandler, a wrestler who needs to fight all the time to keep himself tuned the right way, we had to get him a fight in the interim. So we got a fight with Gono, who has earlier in his career beaten Musasi, beaten Hector Lombard, and has had a rough run over his last few fights. But a very talented guy who's going to fight him at Casino Rama on May 4th up in Canada.
Is that the main
title fight?
Is that the main event of the card?
Yeah, main event. I mean, hard pressed at this point, given Chandler's kind of Q score and the way he's risen through the ranks, not to put him as the main anywhere you go.
He was shocked and surprised that you guys did the video, the trailer about him. We were talking about it. He's like, yeah, I did the commercial. I'm there with Joe Warren and Packer and a couple other guys, and I was told they had nothing for me, and they had me go somewhere else, and then I come back, and they're talking about me. How great a fighting is that? Because you always say you want to build stars. And quite arguably, no offense to the other guys, it seems like Michael Chandler's been your biggest star throughout all the seasons overall.
Mike of late has established himself in a huge way. I mean, obviously we've had an incredible run with Eddie Alvarez. Hector Lombard's been a huge draw for us, both in terms of live attendance and TV ratings. Joe Warren has been, with that mouth and that personality and that comeback ability has been big for us. Askren's been great. But I don't think there's any question. I mean, with the fight of the year last year and his performance against Ed Alvarez, who a lot of guys thought was the best lightweight in the world at the time, Chandler's just established himself. I mean, it's just been kind of a lightning bolt in terms of where he's gone from total unknown to a guy that everybody that talks about the lightweight division goes, Mike Chandler. So, he's a special character. He's a good guy. He's got his heart in the right place. He's got a great story. He's got a great backstory. He trains like a wild dog, and he's just got a wicked skill set. So, sky's the limit for that guy. I mean, you're gonna keep seeing a lot of stuff on Michael Chandler because he's just got all the pieces to the puzzle.
2 more questions, Bjorn, and thank you for the time today.
Sure.
Hector Lombard, your middleweight champion. When are we going to see Hector back in the cage?
My hope would be that we can put Hector back in the cage, but I don't know. We're in the midst of a negotiation. He's been with us 4 years, and our contracts are typically right around that length. It came to an end, and we're negotiating with him right now. If we can come to a deal, he'll re-sign with us. If we can't come to a deal, he'll go out in the open market, see what's available to him, and then we'll have the right to match that deal if we choose to. So, we'll see what happens next.
You were afraid he's going to go to the UFC. Dana White made some statements out in Australia that he would love to have Hector Lombard in the UFC.
Anybody that is a mixed martial arts promoter anywhere in the world would want to have Hector Lombard fight for him. I think he's the best middleweight in MMA. So, he's got one-punch knockout power with both hands. He's an Olympian in judo. His jiu-jitsu, although it's never been tested because he puts everyone to sleep, his jiu-jitsu is unbelievable. His balance, his base, I mean, he's got every piece of the equation. He's in his prime, and he brings that intangible. He brings that one thing that very few guys bring, and that is that feeling when he enters the cage that at any given moment a car accident could happen. At any given moment, with any hand in a split second, he puts a guy to sleep. So he's a wicked talent. It would not surprise me if the smallest promotion in the world or the biggest promotion in the world wanted to get a hold of Hector Lombard.
When does that negotiation window end?
Hector will be able to go out and talk to people, I think, sometime at the end of May. And in the interim, we're talking to him on a regular basis. I'll actually talk to Hector again tomorrow and see if we can put something together.
Is there any fear of him leaving in your mind?
It's not so much a fear, it's just the business. It is what the business is. Guys have long-term contracts. You work with them for that period, and at the end of it, you're going to either negotiate in good faith and make a deal, or they're going to be able to go out, and you've always got a right to match. So your destiny is really in your own hands as a promoter. If somebody else, be it the UFC or another organization, makes him a big offer, we can sit back and do the analysis and say, hey, we're going to keep him, and we're going to match that offer, or you know what, God bless you. Good luck, go knock people out, and we'll be cheering for you.
Another guy in the news, your former lightweight champion, Eddie Alvarez. I know we talked about this before the fight wasn't made, and then a week or two after we talked, the fight was announced with Shinya Aoki coming up in April out in Cleveland, Ohio. Is this the biggest fight in the history of Bellator, just star power-wise?
I don't know. We've had a lot of big fights, and there's some huge fights coming up this season that are all free. All you got to do is just tune in and watch them. So, I don't know. When I look at this fight, I look at it from the perspective of saying, look, Eddie asked me for this fight 3+ years ago. I promised him I'd get it for him, and it took me 3 years to put it together, but I finally got the deal done. So I'm just happy I can get it for him. Ed's been just hugely connected to this organization and this brand for a lot of years. He's been an unbelievable spokesman and just a great guy to work with, and I got nothing but respect for him. I hope he does extremely well in this fight, because if he does, he's going to reestablish himself. And whether he ends up with us for the next 4 or 5 years of his career, or whether he goes somewhere else, this is the kind of win that can put him in a position where Ed can give the kind of things to his family that he wants to give to him, elevate his earning potential. So it sounds counterintuitive to talk about wanting a fighter to elevate so that he can make more money, but I want nothing but good things to happen for Eddie Alvarez. So I hope he does. I hope he does very, very well and looks great in this fight.
How long does his contract is through the end of the year? Is that correct?
I think it's actually a little bit longer than that. I think we got about 7 or 8 more months left with Ed in 2 fights.
Does he plan not? Do you want him to fulfill those 2 fights, or can he not? Can he not choose to take those fights?
Yeah, he would have to take them if we offered him to him. But with Ed, I'm just going to work with him. Eddie and I talk on a weekly basis, so it would just be a matter of working with him. He wanted this fight, and I think when he lost to Chandler, in what I think is, in my mind, the fight of the year, he came back to me and said, can we still make the Aoki fight? Because it's an expensive, big, high-profile fight. And I was like, dude, I promised you I'd make that fight. I'm not going to renege on that deal now. So, the fight's made. We'll see what happens in that fight. If he wins it, it's a different situation, and if he loses it, it provides a different situation as well. We'll have to kind of analyze it once we get past the Aoki fight, win or lose.
I got tweeted a couple questions, and the one question was about Viacom. What can we expect differently production-wise now that Viacom does have a majority stake in Bellator?
A lot of the movement that we've had on the production side, you've seen the beginning of it over the last year. The vision that I had, and I think I shared with our partners at Viacom, and I think they had reciprocally, was to build out this partnership. And that started a year ago last October, and we've signed the MTV2 deal. So you've seen a lot of developments, but you'll just see it getting tighter and better. The features will be better. The teases, the musical scores, the stories, the graphics packages, the shoots, the number of cameras we're using, everything we do, the technology that's integrated, the Bellator app, all these pieces will come together. There's nobody in the history of television that knows MMA better or knows how to connect with the MMA viewer better than Spike. They, every single time I talk to them, teach me something about what we can do better on this show and how we can make it better. They've just been the consummate partner. So the show will just keep elevating. It'll elevate this season, summer series, fall, and then in 9 months when we transition to Spike, it'll just keep getting better and better and more exciting and faster. So, they wrote the book.
Bellator 60 takes place this coming Friday night in Hammond, Indiana at the venue at the Horseshoe. Pat Hearn against Joe Warren for the featherweight title. Bjorn, thank you for the time.